Okay, everyone, come on up. As in the other ones, one of the people ahead of you are Barry Gibson. Thank you. What we were saying, Barry Gibson is our Republican candidate. Joyce Griffin is our Democratic candidate for Supervisor of Elections. Surprisingly, it's a partisan race. You'd think if anything was nonpartisan, it would be the Supervisor of Elections, but I'm, I guess, editorializing it. So we'll get right into the questions as we do. Richard, you'll start off. Here's the mic.
Barry, I'm going to start with you, and I know it is the law of the state right now, but photo ID has been instituted in order for us to vote. We must have a photo ID. I wonder how you personally feel about that. And if you think it's necessary, what were the statistics of voter fraud that prompted this?
You know, I think it's important that we know who are voting. I think we want to know who our voters are. Should you need a state ID, you know, the legislator made that decision, so it's not in my control whether or not. It's important that we know who our voters are. And by using a signature, it's important to be able to verify some of those. So if they don't have their ID at the poll, and we can certainly get a provisional ballot, and we'll make sure the vote counts. Everything I've read and heard, I'm not aware of any voter fraud in this county. I'm not aware of really any voter fraud in Florida. I think there were 3 cases in Florida that were prosecuted for voter fraud. So out of 18 million residents, 3 cases is hardly any excuse for this. There may be other reasons behind the voter ID laws. I don't know, because Tallahassee operates in a back room. I just know that how I operate. When I served on the commission, we operate on the sunshine laws that guaranteed and ensured that everything that we did was fair and out in the open. And Tallahassee doesn't operate that way. So there may be other reasons for that as well, Richard.
And how do you feel about that photo ID?
You know, I'm somewhat ambivalent to it. You know, we need to make sure that as long as we know who our people are. And there's a number of ways for photo ID, whether it's, you know,
So you agree with photo ID? We should keep photo ID?
well, it's here, it's the law. It's the law. It doesn't matter whether I agree with it or not. It's the law, and it's the Supervisor of Elections' job to follow the law.
And how do you
You
feel
can
about
ask that question to state representatives how they feel about it, because they're the only ones that have the ability to change that.
I understand it's the law. How do you feel about it?
If the voter ID law is in place for the right reasons, and I can't tell you all the reasons why it was done, but if it was done for the right reasons, that's okay. But I would like to know why all the reasons were done. If they were saying it was done for voter fraud, then no, that's not acceptable.
Joyce?
Same question.
Yes.
Many years ago, we voted, the voters came to the polls with their voter registration card. And the poll workers would check their signature on the voter registration card, and if the signature didn't match, there was an affidavit for that also. It worked good then. I don't know why they changed it, but they did. It wasn't, you know, we got to follow the law. We do have the provisional ballot. I think in some states that are having a hard time with photo IDs, those states do not have provisional ballots. So when you get to the polls, if you don't have a photo ID, then you can't vote. But years ago, when you just showed up with your, in those days, they called it a voter ID card. Now they call the same card, looks the same, but they call it a voter information card, and there's no signature on it. So it would be, you know, it worked back in the days with just the voter ID card, so we can go back to that for all I'm concerned. It worked well then.
Thank you.
Okay, this question is for Barry. Barry, you said that you'll put together a community outreach program that hasn't been seen in Monroe County in years. What benefits will that have?
The benefit to this county is we need more voters. And we can't be satisfied with the numbers that we have. When I started the campaign, the number of registered voters are about 10% from when I started looking at this process almost 2 years ago. So we need to get young people engaged. I fear that the under 30 people are not voting enough, they're not engaged. There may be a number of reasons why, we need to find out. But getting people excited about voting, not just every 4 years when an election comes up, or every other year when it's a county or city election, it needs to be done every single day. We need to talk about it until we're blue in the face. And I think that I will bring a lot of that to this, new excitement, new energy, to make sure that the voting is talked about every day, every week, every month, not necessarily every 4 years.
I'd like each of you to respond to the following argument. And Joyce, will start with you. And here's the argument. In last month's primary election, with more candidates running than at any time in the county's history, voter turnout was less than 30%, despite 2 weeks of early voting, Saturday voting, and absentee voting. Low voter turnout makes my vote more important. Why should the Supervisor of Elections office spend taxpayer money trying to get people who obviously have no interest in voting to vote, thus diluting my vote? Shouldn't that be the candidate's job and not the job of the Supervisor of Elections?
We advertise what we need to advertise. We get the information out to the voters. We sent out early this year to every registered voter information on when the election is, because everybody ought to know when the election is. We also send out when the book closings are. We send out when early voting is. We sent out the absentee request form. We advertise what we have to advertise in the newspaper. But as far after that, we are not in charge of getting the voter turnout high. Now, for the first time this year ever, at 9 o'clock in the morning, I was on the phone calling every one of the candidates, telling them the upper keys were not voting. For the first time ever in 28 years, at 8 o'clock in the morning, I had a precinct that had not one person walk in the door. The Isla Morada Library had 3 voters at 8 o'clock in the morning. So I did call the candidates and I told them all, Upper Keys is not voting, just to let you know. And that was, we do that from time to time to the candidates. If we get a complaint that a sign's too close or whatever, we do call the candidates and let them know, but it is not our job to get voter turnout.
Same question.
And I would say it's good business. It's the job that you would elect me to do as a Supervisor of Elections. And that's not just to run the elections and deal with the poll worker training and handle the candidates' financing. My personal belief is I feel a responsibility to the voters, and maybe it is you as a candidate, but also to your opponent, the candidate, to drive as many people to the polls. I think by educating and creating goodwill in the community about voting, and whether we create it, whether it's fun, whether it's important, whether, it's one of our most fundamental rights that we have as American citizens. And I think we need more that needs to be done. So I think it's good business, and you're investing the taxpayer dollars in myself and the staff and the office already. We can do more.
The current Supervisor of Elections, a Republican, recently refused to go along with Governor Scott's proposed legislation requiring a reduction in the number of early voting days. Was he correct to take such a strong stance? What do you think you would have done in his stead, Joyce?
Oh yeah, I think he was, and I would have done the same thing. I'm very much for the longer days and shorter hours. We will get to see if it works or if it doesn't work. We have never had that in Monroe County. Every election, our early voting totals do go up. Voters are getting more and more familiar with the early voting, and they like it, and they come out for it. But I just don't know at 7 o'clock in the morning when people are getting ready for work and people are getting their kids ready for school and such, if they'll be out early voting. So it is something that we will do because it is law. Whether or not it will increase the early voting turnout, it is yet to be seen. We will do it because we have to.
Good for Harry Sawyer. I think it was great for Monroe County. He really put us on the map. So, I supported Harry with his decision because I trust Harry Sawyer, and I think a lot of people in this room trusted Harry Sawyer and his opinion. So I right off the bat, I trust his opinion. Having said that, change is good. And some people don't like change, but it's okay. Change is good. So, like Joyce says, we don't know what the outcome is, but it's going to be, but it's going to be the job of this office to make sure that it works. And not just to be worried about whether it's not going to work and the change wasn't good. So I look at it as a positive chance for this office to increase voter turnout, and hopefully when you're done with work at 5 o'clock, if you work 9 to 5 like I do, you can go to the polls after you work, and it'll be election day for 8 straight days, including Sunday. So this will be monumental and experimental in a lot of ways. I think it's going to be good.
Some states are now thinking about or trying to begin ballots by mail and not having the polling place. And I just wondered what you thought of that, Joyce.
I'm not sure what the voters would think of it. The voters, we have absentee voting now, and we have early voting now, and a lot of people demand that they want to go to the polls. They want to go. They feel that this is their right to go to the polls on election day, and it's almost like a little celebration for them.
But you're only talking about 30% of the voting people in the county. Do you think it would bring out more people to vote if they would mail it in?
Well, that would be the question, would they mail it in? And then you have to look at the expense of mailing out to 50,000 registered voters who may not have an interest in voting. So, I know that some places do it. We don't do it. I just know, you asked me, and there are a lot of people out there. I know my own parents. It took me a long time to get them to vote absentee, but the older generation, if it's raining, they won't go out, and you can't really blame them. My mother's 90, my mom. And if she catches pneumonia, it's over for her. So she won't go out now. She's going to vote absentee, I'll tell you that. And I'll make sure to get that vote in. But the people like to go to the polls. They feel it's tradition, and whether or not, I just don't think that the voters would really appreciate not being able to go to the polls.
Very good.
A couple of things come to mind. One is, if you want to do it electronically, we would like to get electronic voting, cheap, easy, fast. That would be awesome. But to send a ballot out to everybody that wants one, that's taxpayer money. Then when you get your ballot, I vote absentee, you get your ballot, and then you look at the envelope, it costs you $1.10 to send it back. So now you're going to pay $1.10 to vote. For some people, they may not want to pay the $1.10. So, there's a cost on both sides that we need to look at. And I think the early voting and the absentee ballot is taking off. And people are excited about the opportunity to vote. My wife is one who will vote on election day. No matter what, I tell you, even in my last election, she would wait until that day. So I know there's a lot of people, like Joyce said, there are a lot of people that love to vote on election day. They get a thrill out of it, they're excited about it. I'm not one of those.
Okay, this is for both of you. Joyce, you can start. How can we be sure that she'll serve and protect the voters despite your personal party preference? How can we be sure that she'll serve and protect the voter despite your personal party preference?
Because I've been doing it for 28 years. I think really, up until I ran, I think a lot of Republicans were surprised to find out I'm a Democrat. I don't think that a lot of people knew. I think some people actually think Mr. Sawyer is a Democrat. We have a nonpartisan office. We make sure our staff stays nonpartisan. You could ask the candidates. I do not go to any candidate event because I am the Assistant Supervisor of Elections for Monroe County. And if I can't go to every event, I'm not going to any of them. I'm not going to give the appearance of backing one candidate over another. And yet you could ask them all. I help them as much as I possibly can. I'm used to doing this. This is what I was raised to do. This is my calling.
I guess it's probably a little more appropriate for me since I'm the Republican candidate, and there is a lot of talk, there's a lot of noise in the news and in the media about whether or not a certain party is trying to stifle the vote or trying to create issues there. You know, I signed up as a Republican, as my father told me to when I was 18 years old, and I didn't know the difference. And I've been a lifelong Republican ever since. But you know, I've lived in Key West for 30 years, and I'm of the one human family party these days. And to me, it is a job, and similar to what Todd said earlier on, I'm still baffled on why this is a partisan race, and it shouldn't be. But you elect us to do the job, and each candidate, each voter should feel that they're getting the same information in this office as everybody else is, and you should not feel that I'm a Republican and Joyce is a Democrat or Harry is a Republican. You really shouldn't know. And I follow that philosophy. And I talked to Harry one day and I said, you know, he says, Harry tells me, he says, you know, I could walk in the grocery store and nobody knows who I am. But if I told them my name, they would know me. So there's somewhat of an example of somebody who's stayed very low key, stayed out of politics, and I admire them for that. And the first thing that you have to do with this job is the first lesson that I learned when I started to look at this position is that my opinion doesn't count anymore.
And this is a question for both of you, another specifics question. If elected, what changes, if any, would you make to the Supervisor of Elections office within the first 120 days after the election? And Barry, will start with you.
First one, create an outreach program using a documented outreach program with an employer-based program similar to United Way, what they do. Get involved in the community, put together that package with the staff, sit down and create a new poll worker training program, they need one. Sit down and put together a new candidates training program, they need one. I don't know if I can get it done in 120 days, but the website would need a new one.
Well, we have over 80% of the registered, the age for voting, people vote registered in Monroe County. And if you count in the inactives, we have over 90. Now, inactives can vote. Are they all going to vote? No. But we have over 80%. We do outreach. We go to the high schools, we do homecoming elections, we do elementary school elections, we do co-op elections, the electric co-op elections, we do the Chamber of Commerce elections, we do the Business Guild elections. We do go to special events, and we do registrations. We register students at the high school. We register every year between 200 and 400 students at the high school, and we register people at the college also. We are everywhere doing everything. Our website, it's looked the same for a very long time because everybody loves it. If you want to know something, it's there. Somebody will call and say, how do I find this out? It's on our website. The poll worker training comes down from Tallahassee. Well, tell Tallahassee that we need a new poll worker training, but they update it every year, and we go by that. And also the candidate training comes down from Tallahassee, and we follow that also. What I would like to do, and my calling, and I think everybody in here who has known me and had an opportunity to talk to me at all, I can sit here and talk all night. You can release all of the other candidates. We're going to talk elections, people. I know elections. I know what they're about. I know everything about them, and I want you to know I am passionate about getting education out to everybody, and that I would start right away.
Thank you, guys.